Well, good morning. Welcome to Debbie's Back Porch. So glad to have you with us. I'm in the mood for some comfort food, and unfortunately, my comfort food is usually pretty high carb. So I spend a fair amount of time trying to figure out how to convert my comfort food to diabetic food. So today I'm going to make the diabetic version, the lower carb version of red beans and rice with sausage. But really there's no rice in it. It's riced cauliflower, and it turned out really good. Before we get started, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe and click the little bell at the top right, and you'll get a notice when I post new videos. Now let's get cooking. I'm going to go over the ingredients, and I'll warn you ahead of time I can't make a little of this. So I've made several freezer meals out of this, and it freezes well. Now this is riced cauliflower, and you may have heard me say before, I get sick of cauliflower. I like it. It's good stuff. It's good for you. But every day it gets pretty old. So I spend a bit of time trying to cover it up. This is my pork sausage, and for your red beans and rice, you may prefer a hotter sausage or no sausage, but I'm just using regular breakfast sausage. And beans. Now beans are not low carb. They're very high in fiber. So I'm using less beans. I'm using 1.5 cups. I have a video on how to cook beans for less digestive distress, and I'll link that at the end. I have an onion here. This is a red onion, a purple onion, just because that's what I had. It's almost a whole large onion. I've got 2 tablespoons of soy sauce here. Now, you don't normally put soy sauce in beans and rice, and this is some cumin, but this helps change the flavor of the cauliflower, is why I use it. And I've got a little chili powder here. I'm using a 1/2 teaspoonful of chili powder and a 1/4 teaspoonful of cumin. I'm also going to use a teaspoonful of minced garlic. Now I'm going to start out by cooking this cauliflower in the microwave for half the recommended time. Just want to thaw it out good. I'm not cooking it done. And I'm going to start by browning the sausage. And I'm going to show off a little here. This is my Griswold skillet. I just gave her a good scrub and polish, and I just wanted you to see her. She's really old, and she's just perfect for cooking this sausage. So all I'm doing is I crumbled the sausage up, and I'm going to cook it until it's almost done. Not crunchy brown done, but cooked all the way through. It will get cooked more toward the end of the process here, so I don't want to overcook it here. So I'm just going to take this up and set it to the side. Now we're going to take the next step. I've got some grapeseed oil here. You can use sesame oil for the flavor. You could even use a little olive oil. I've put about 1 ounce in there. And I'm going to brown the onions a little bit. Not too much, but I want to get just a little color on them. And this is a good bit of onions. I used almost that whole big onion. And part of that is because I'm making up for the fewer beans that I'm using. Beans are, as I said, they're fairly high carb. 1.5 cups of them in this dish, which serves 8, net is going to give you about 5 grams of carbs from the beans. So this really, cutting the beans back and taking the rice out, really cuts back on the carbs. So I'm going to salt these so they'll wilt a little, let go of their flavor and their juices. And I'm just going to cook these until they start to sizzle really well before I add anything else to it. And then I'm going to add the garlic. You know, that garlic I told you I forgot to mention. I'm going to put a whole teaspoonful of minced garlic in this. If you're using fresh garlic, that would be, I don't know, 4 or 5 cloves. I buy this pickled minced garlic in the grocery store. It's so good, and it's so much easier on my hands but you want to use a good bit of garlic in this. So I'm just going to stir that around, and it's smelling heavenly. And then I'm going to get my cauliflower and add that. So I cook this half the time in the bag. No, I didn't drain it. You don't have to drain it. If there's any fluid left in it, it's going to cook off. This particular brand doesn't actually have a lot of liquid in it, a lot of moisture. So it's not as much of an issue. Or you can drain it if you want to, if yours has too much. But I don't find it to be an issue in this dish with this cauliflower. So I'm going to just stir all that together. Now, you know, the cauliflower is already half cooked. If you want to use fresh riced cauliflower, please do. I just found that this frozen is really good. No mess to use it. And if you buy your bulk of your groceries once a month like most seniors do, then you have plenty in the freezer. Now I'm adding a half teaspoonful of chili powder, and I think I might have said the wrong amounts when I was showing the ingredients, but I'll make sure the right amount is in the info section of the video. And then I'll add a 1/4 teaspoonful of cumin. Now, if you are trying to mask the flavor of cauliflower, and yes, I know cauliflower is good stuff, but as I said, I'm sick of it. Cumin helps. It brings its own flavor, and it really masks the cauliflower. The soy sauce that I'm going to add here in just a second does the same thing. Soy sauce is not something usually you would put in red beans and rice, but it just works better, and it makes the whole thing more enjoyable, for me at least, and I suggest you try it. So I'm just going to stir all that around. I don't want any pockets of chili powder. And I'll let that simmer just a little bit. And then I'll add the 2 tablespoonsful of soy sauce. And you know, Worcestershire sauce also works fairly well. So you might, if you don't have the soy, you might try that. If you're using soy, I generally use the lower sodium kind, but even the lower sodium soy is going to impact your salt. So if you'll notice, I haven't salted this since I put the onions in. And generally, it doesn't need any more salt, but I'll taste it right before I plate it up to make sure that we got enough salt. You can also add some red pepper flakes to this if you like. I'm not going to because I have the chili powder in. A lot of folks like things a little spicier than I do. So in go my beans. If beans bother your digestion, then I'm going to suggest you watch the video that I did on how to cook beans to make them more easily digestible. It really works. So here we go. We've got everything in here but our meat, and I'm going to stir that sausage back in. And I should mention I have this on a really low heat because there's no excess moisture in this at all. Now everybody has their own favorite beans and rice recipe. If you like to add some tomato paste or tomato sauce to yours, please feel free. My goal here was to show you the method to make them tasty and lower the carbs. But you can use that method with any red beans and rice recipe that you like. The goal here is to allow you to recreate something very close to your comfort food in a lower carb version. And red beans and rice, you know, that's just high carb food. But if it's one of those things that you crave, finding a way to continue to have it is kind of helpful in staying on your diet. So I'm going to taste this for salt. And as I suspected, with all the things we put in it, it doesn't need any more salt. I'm going to plate this up and eat. Now, just so you know, my off-center photography here is not me being artsy. It was that my camera slipped. But I'm going to give this a try here just to see if it satisfies my craving. Oh, that's good. And you can see I like to serve mine with a little dab of sour cream, and I put some peppers on top of it. You might prefer to put the peppers in the dish as it's cooking. That's up to you. And here's a little tip. I have some Italian dressing on that little salad, and talking about bean distress, if you eat a little acid as you're eating the beans, it really helps. So here you go. If you're looking for a diabetic comfort food, this may be it. It's one of mine. I hope you try this recipe, and I hope you like it. And I hope to see you again tomorrow on Debbie's Back Porch.